Hello, I'm Beth Joey and welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, welcome. This is the channel where I paint my face, turn my camera on and talk about some books. It is a little bit of a change of scenery at the moment because I just finished filming my Ramathon week 4 video, which I will link up above and down below. It was a super fun readathon, so do check out my vlogs for that. And as you'll have seen from the title down below, this book is purely based around reading my book club picks for the month of May. I might make this a monthly thing if it goes relatively well. I just have a couple of book clubs that I'm a part of and I never end up reading the books, so I need a prompt to do it, and this is going to be that prompt. I'm a part of 3 book clubs. They are the Lost Books Club, the Cliterature Club, and my own work book club as well. Lost Books Club is a sort of fae versus pirate fantasy book club where you read one fae book and one pirate book every month and then they sort of battle it out. My work book club, obviously because it's a work thing, it tends to be more literary fiction, things that make you think, biographies, that sort of stuff. And then Cliterature Book Club is a good, fun, smutty book club where we read some romances, have a bit of fun, all that sort of thing. And I think it's hosted by Steph Loves. I'll link the announcement video down below. So in this video, I want to read the 4 books for those book clubs. Now those books are In Deeper Waters by F.T. Lukens and Malice by Heather Walter, both of which are for the Lost Books Club. Then we have The Educated by Tara Westover for my work book club, and The Kiss Quotient by Helen Hoang for the Cliterature Book Club, which is actually a book I've already read before, but I don't mind a reread because I loved it so much the first and second time I read it actually, and I need to finish that series, so this might be a good prompt to get started on doing that because I received The Heart Principle, read a few reviews about it being less romance, more contemporary, got scared and haven't picked it up. So without further ado, I'm going to start with The Kiss Quotient purely because I read a lot of fantasy after Ramathon this month and I just need a little bit of an easy breezy break, and I think The Kiss Quotient will be exactly that. Plus it helps that The Kiss Quotient is the only book I actually have at my flat at the moment. Educated by Tara Westover, I need to pick that up from the library tomorrow, and then the other 2, I currently have reservations on them from the library, but I'm in the queue, so I might end up just getting the ebooks and then going with that and maybe hoping that I can read the rest, like the second half in hard copy, because I do prefer a hard copy over an ebook. Let's get started with The Kiss Quotient. So it is Saturday today. We are officially in the beginning of the May bank holiday weekend. It is about midday and it is a beautiful sunny day outside, and I have started and finished The Kiss Quotient by Helen Hoang in basically a matter of hours. I always come out of this book with a massive smile on my face. It is such a heartwarming read and I always feel like I've learned something as well about autism and about the characters themselves because I feel like I know them now with how many times I've read this book. As Stella kind of navigates this dating world and her first ever real relationship, it's really interesting to see her coming to terms with and struggling with the different aspects of her autism that create challenges when trying to build a relationship with someone, and the aspects of it that make her really second guess Michael's intentions and what her own motivations are. But at every turn, Michael is there for her. He is holding her hand, he is calming her, he is soothing her, he is supporting her, and he is probably one of my favorite male leads in a romance novel ever. I love how this book is not only mutual pining, but like the characters are also in a relationship together, so they're pining after each other because they're not in like an official relationship, but they are doing everything that people in a relationship would be doing, so it's a really interesting conflict there just for the reader. I love that it's a book of like self-discovery and self-acceptance in a way as well, because obviously towards the end there's a conflict around whether or not they can accept who they are in themselves and their own history and their family, and they're able to separate and deal with those sorts of issues on their own rather than the sort of typical romance thing where the person that you love ends up saving your world and making everything better. Like, these 2 people are separate in themselves, that they can go off and they can solve their own issues and then come back together and have a better relationship as a result. A more honest one as well, because obviously there were a lot of sort of fibs and lies like sprinkled throughout the beginning of their relationship, or at least omissions of the truth. Michael's family is absolutely charming, and I have to say Stella's mum was a bit of a surprise for me because at the beginning of the book I didn't really like her because I thought she was very much not accepting of Stella's autism sarcasm and trying to force her into situations that she was uncomfortable in. But by the end, it really looks like she wants her to just be happy, and she's trying to make that happen in the only way she knows how, which is to get Stella in a relationship, having kids, marriage, everything like that. So yeah, like I said, this book always puts a smile on my face. I was more than happy to reread it for the Literature Club, but now we are moving on to the next book, which is Educated by Tara Westover. This is a non-fiction or an autobiography written by Tara Westover about her own life growing up in a Mormon church, I think it is. Let's look at the blurb. It says, Tara Westover grew up preparing for the end of days, hoping that when the world of men failed, her family would continue on unaffected. She hadn't been registered for a birth certificate, she had no school records because she'd never set foot in a classroom, and no medical records because her father didn't believe in doctors or hospitals. According to the state and federal governments, she didn't exist. As she grew older, her father became more radical and her brother more violent. At 16, Tara decided to educate herself. Her struggle for knowledge would take her far from her Idaho mountains, over oceans and across continents, to Harvard and to Cambridge. Only then would she wonder if she'd traveled too far, if there was still a way home. It sounds really fascinating, and I have to say, I just love this cover. I love the sort of sunset thing that's going on here. I'm also laughing a little bit because my library gave me like the massive text version, so I'm hoping that means it'll be a quick read, because with massive text, it's like 430 pages. Because the text is massive, that means it's only, what, like 230? But yeah, I'm going to give this a read, and I will let you know my thoughts once I'm a little bit further in. Hey, I'm just about to go out to dinner with some friends. I got all dressed up and fanciful for the occasion, because why the hell not? But I figured I would give a quick update on Educated by Tara Westover before I go. I am 80 pages in, I'm up to chapter 6, and I am sort of enjoying it so far, but I am a little bit confused by it as well. I'm reading it really, really slowly because there's just a lot of information to take in all at once, and it's told in a really sort of childlike voice, but not. It's hard to describe. The language is quite sophisticated, but the events that are being described are happening to a child, so you're reading it from a child's point of view, and it's kind of confusing me in my brain a little bit. The first thing I noticed about this book is that the timeline of events being told in the story are kind of jumbled a bit, because it is told more like a string of consciousness rather than as like a chronology of events. I think it's really, really interesting in this book that the mother kind of undermines the father, who seems to be the sort of main driver behind this cult-like family situation that's being created. For example, she installs a phone line, and he's obviously really against that because he wants to live off the grid and he doesn't want the government to come and like get access to him. And then she also gets birth certificates for her children, which essentially means that she registers them as being born, because previously to this they had no birth certificates. And again, this is something that he doesn't want because he doesn't want the government to know anything about his family. When she was first introduced, I expected her to be really, really meek and timid, because she was kind of forced into being a midwife, or manipulated into being a midwife by the husband, and was kind of meek and timid at the beginning. But she really does have a mind of her own, and I really do like that Tara, the main character in this book, was brought up with sort of a woman with her own mind as like a role model, and a woman that had a bit of a rebellious spirit, which I think will pass along to Tara when she goes into the part where she kind of wants to get her education. The last thing I noted about this book is that it's really, really interesting that when you live off the grid in the way this family does, just how much access to healthcare and things like that is completely cut off is a major thing, because there are situations where the mother is a midwife and she just wishes she could have access to an ambulance, and she goes and she gets one in the end, but there are really dangerous situations that she's put in because she doesn't feel like she can just call up the police or call up an ambulance. Like, the family gets into a car accident as well, and the residual impact of that car accident is that they never seek medical treatment, and so the mother has a completely undiagnosed significant brain injury that no one knows about. And then one of the older sons has his front two teeth like knocked back, so they're like parallel with the roof of his mouth, and this is just something that never changes because he never had access to healthcare to get himself checked out after this accident. But anyway, this book is really interesting so far. I am enjoying reading it, but like I said before, it is really, really dense, and it's a really, really slow read for me at the moment. So I'm kind of hoping that doesn't disrupt my plans to read 4 books this weekend, but we'll see. I would not classify this a particularly successful reading vlog at all. It is Monday and I last updated you guys on Saturday, and it was supposed to be a weekend reading vlog for the long weekend for the May Bank holiday, and I've forgotten a whole day. I have also finished Educated by Tara Westover after only updating you guys on this I think one time. So yeah, we're just gonna go with it. We're gonna pretend that this is better than it is and we're gonna hope for the best. In terms of my thoughts, I really struggled with this one. The language itself was very dense at times, which made me question whether or not this is like an academic text or a memoir, because at times it felt very much like an essay rather than like a story of events or little vignettes about events that happened to Tara that were relevant to her life and the way she turned out. And this was really especially obvious when Tara would reflect on and analyze events that took place throughout her life. So she would really go into detail about why those particular things happened and the background for those sorts of things, and really analyze things with a fine-tooth comb using very dense language, like smart language as I would call it, which is not like the right wording for that at all, but it just made it very slow, and it meant that I would tune out sometimes, which I feel horrible to say because it's such an interesting story and the basis of the story is so interesting. But I would tune out sometimes and I would have to constantly reread passages over and over again, which made the reading experience quite slow for what is only like a 400 and something page book when the text is really big, so that makes it like 200 pages. But at the end, this was a really fascinating look at a sort of conspiracy theorist isolated lifestyle that the family led, and the implications of that in terms of access to education, healthcare, and the impact it has on relationships with family and with people outside of your family. Healthcare seemed to be a really big thing in this one because there were so many residual illnesses and injuries in this family that had occurred and never been treated. So you saw the impacts of that, of like brain injuries that had never been treated, and so their impulse control, for example, was massively hindered by this brain injury, and then they never knew it. They just thought that particular person had that sort of personality. I think it was also a signal of hope for readers as well, because despite coming from this abusive background and this very isolated lifestyle and not really knowing anything about the world when she finally entered it in university, she was able to obviously get her PhD, become a doctor, and really be successful in her life. So it is that signal of hope, being like, no matter where you come from, you can always make the best of your situation and excel in whatever you want to do. But at the end of the day, I did give the book 2 stars because just that dense language and that slow reading, I just couldn't get involved in this story. I found it really hard to connect with a lot of the characters because it felt very sterile and academic at times, and I'm not into reading that sort of memoir. I want stories, I want vignettes, I want emotion, but I just couldn't get that from this. Next up, I'm finally getting around to the 2 books for Lost Books Club, which is the 3rd book club that I am a part of. So the 2 books are In Deeper Waters by F.T. Lukens and Malice by, I think it's Heather Walter, correct me if that's wrong. I'm going to start with In Deeper Waters, which is the pirate pick. I know absolutely nothing about this book, so I'm just going to read you the Goodreads profile for it, which says, a young prince must rely on a mysterious stranger to save him when he is kidnapped during his coming-of-age tour in this swoony adventure that is the gentleman's guide to vice and virtue meets Pirates of the Caribbean. Prince Tal has long awaited his coming-of-age tour. After spending most of his life cloistered behind palace walls, as he learns to keep his forbidden magic secret, he can finally see his family's kingdom for the first time. His first taste of adventure comes just 2 days into the journey, when their crew discovers a mysterious prisoner on a burning derelict vessel. Tasked with watching over the prisoner, Tal is surprised to feel an intense connection with the roguish Athlin. So when Athlin leaps overboard and disappears, Tal feels responsible and heartbroken, knowing Athlin could not have survived in the open ocean. That is until Tal runs into Athlin days later on dry land, very much alive and as charming and secretive as ever. But before they can pursue anything further, Tal is kidnapped by pirates and held ransom in a plot to reveal his rumored powers and instigate a war. Tal must escape if he hopes to save his family and the kingdom, and Athlin might just be his only hope. So it's definitely a pirate sort of forbidden lovers kind of romance, I think, and it's an LGBT romance as well. So yeah, I'm looking forward to reading it. It looks like a lot of fun, and I will give you my thoughts on it once I've actually gotten started. It is Tuesday and well and truly the end of the May Bank holiday weekend, and I did not get the reading I planned to get done, but I got most of it and then had 1 DNF. I'm not sure if I mentioned this in my last clip, but the next book that I decided to pick up was In Deeper Waters by F.T. Lukens, and this is the book that I did not finish. I just could not read a single page more of this book. It was too much for me. The very first thing that I noticed was the book was very sequence of events in the way it was written. It was very much this happened and then this happened and then he said this and then I said this and then he did this and then I did that, and it was just There was no description, no context, no world building, no magic building, nothing. Within the first chapter, half of the blurb was completely covered off, but I still had no idea about the world, about the characters, about the magic, any of their relationships to each other, nothing. So in terms of plot, this moved very quickly, but in terms of building a narrative, it was just non-existent. The book frequently mentioned Tao's magic, but gave no indication of the constraints of the magic or where the magic came from or how it was rooted in his family. It then discusses political tensions with other kingdoms, but doesn't mention who those kingdoms are, what the political tensions are, geopolitical, and this very, very insta-love relationship that literally came out of nowhere, and these two boys have this connection that literally is fostered within a day, or I think even a couple of hours of meeting each other, and they're so addicted to each other, and it was way too insta-love for me. I couldn't handle any more of this book, so I put it down. And then I tried to get Malice by Heather Walter from my library and had absolutely no success either. And after how much I didn't like this book, I was really, really hesitant to actually buy Malice, knowing nothing about it, so I decided to end the vlog here and to save Malice for another future vlog or even another month, because I have so many other books that I have to read this month. Check out my list of books in my TBR, which I will link up above and down below. There are like 8 books on that TBR alone, and some of them are quite long, so I just want to save my energy for reading those books when I know I'm actually going to enjoy them, instead of picking up things and potentially buying things that I'm not sure about. So that is the end of my May bank holiday vlog. Let me know down below if you had the May bank holiday as well, if you're in the UK. What did you get up to that weekend? Did you do a lot of reading? Did you enjoy the sunshine? I would love to know. Also, let me know down below what you guys are reading lately, if you're loving it, if you're hating it, what your thoughts are on any of the books that I read, and if you think I potentially missed something in any of them. I love to chat to you guys down below. As always, like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to be notified when I release new content, and I will see you lovely people in my next video. Bye!